Welcome back. My next guest is Clarkstown Police Chief Ray McCullagh. Welcome, Chief.
Good morning, Supervisor. How are you today?
Great. Happy to have you, Chief. We've been working together closely last number of years, and you've been a great police chief. A lot of changes in the police department under your leadership, a lot of new initiatives, a lot of new officers, some real efforts to diversify the police department. We're going to talk about all of that. But before we get to that, let's talk a little bit about you, give our residents the opportunity to learn a little bit about their police chief, how long you've been an officer, and how long you've been the chief of police.
Sure. So I guess I was in this room about 3 years and 4 months ago when I first became chief, doing your show. So I guess, so that's, I've been chief for just about 3 years and 4 months. I've been a police officer for just over 35 years. And on April 10th will be my 32nd anniversary as a Clarkstown police officer.
Right. So, Chief, you didn't start off as a Clarkstown police officer. You didn't start off as chief of police. You came from a family. Tell us a little bit about your family background and your connection to Clarkstown.
Yeah, sure. Moved up here from the Bronx in 1972, and one of 6 children. My father was a New York City police officer, and moved up here 72, went to Bardoni Elementary School for a few years, and then all through the Clarkstown school system. Graduated high school from Clarkstown South.
Right. And where did you go to college, Chief?
I went to LaSalle University, which is in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania.
Great. And then eventually you became a New York City police officer, right, Chief?
Yeah, January 1986, went on the NYPD, and worked there until April 10th of 1989. And while there, I worked in the Bronx. Actually, you know the neighborhood I worked, right? You're very familiar with it.
Bainbridge Avenue, St. Brendan's, the 5th.
That's right. Yep, 52nd Precinct. And worked there, had a great time, worked with some really amazing people, some great cops, and came up to Clarkstown then and never looked back. I've also worked with great people and great officers here.
Right. Right. And you also have the best birthday in the entire world, right?
I absolutely do.
Right. For those that don't know, the chief and I actually share the same birthday, although he's much older than I am. So.
Right.
So anyway, Chief, you've done a lot of things up here, but before we get to that, how has law enforcement changed, over these last 30 plus years for you?
Yeah, it's obviously changed dramatically, and probably the biggest driver of that has been technology. A lot of technology that's helped the police, the use of tasers and kind of non-lethal and less lethal tools that the police have now that they didn't have in the 1980s or earlier, obviously. Technology's been huge. Some of the more recent changes, social media has changed police a lot. And you know what? A lot of people think it's a bad thing. It's actually, it's helped us a lot too. We have someone missing person. We put it out on social media. We have a great public information officer, Norm Peters, who puts gets things out, and we get instant feedback from the public. So I know a lot of people think that police don't like social media. It's actually been of a great help to us.
Right.
So and of course that's part of technology. So there's really technology, and the younger officers we hire now are much more educated than we were back in the day. We really get a great quality of officer here in Clarkstown.
Right. So let's jump ahead, Chief. So I won't go through your entire career portfolio. Let's talk about what's going on under your leadership in the Clarkstown Police Department. And there's a number of new initiatives that you've undertaken as chief that have kind of been targeted towards the opioid crisis. Maybe we could talk about those.
So one of the things when I first became chief kind of set out as my goal is to really delve more deeply into community policing, right? So we've had some foot posts on Main Street, New City, Congress, Nanuet, stuff like that, really just to get the department out there so people see our officers better, not just sitting in a vehicle. Fast forward to more recently, and this kind of is community policing. The opioid epidemic has been so bad, and we've lost, unfortunately, a lot of town residents to this scourge. We've partnered with some of the nonprofits in the community to, we can't arrest our way out of the problem, right? We learned that a long time ago. So one of the great things is a project called Hope Not Handcuffs, where if anyone, feels they need help and just don't know what to do, don't know where to go, they could come to our police station. no questions asked, no, we're not going to arrest them or anything. We'll reach out to a member of Hope Not Handcuffs, give them all the information. They will wait with them, and they'll come to our station, pick them up, and get them into whatever kind of treatment they may need. Our district attorney has also been very forward-thinking on this, our new district attorney, Tom Walsh. And one of his things is called LEAD. It's called Law Enforcement. It stands for Law Enforcement Assisted Diversion. So someone that's been arrested for a very minor crime or have a very limited criminal history can, instead of their criminal charges being prosecuted, that'll be put on hold and give them an offer, a chance to get into rehabilitation. And if they do that successfully, down the road, the charges could be dropped.
Right.
So again, you don't want someone to ruin their life if they do something one time and have that follow them around the rest of their life. Really, the idea is to get them the treatment they need, and then hopefully we never have to deal with them again.
Right. And I know, Chief, we have a great DA, Judge Walsh, has been an exceptional district attorney, and one of the things that he's done is really he's looked at a lot of these different diversion programs. We've got a lot of partnerships with the DA. Maybe you could talk about the fraud program that we're working on with the district attorney's office? Yeah,
sure. So we have an officer assigned. It's really going to be revenue crimes, any kind of revenue crime. Try and investigate that, and then not only arrest the person, but potentially recoup the money that's been lost.
Right.
We also have officer assigned up there to the Crime Analysis Center, which compiles all crime statistics and shoots them out to the rest of the county. Very, very helpful program. They send out twice a week a PowerPoint presentation with everything that's happened in the county, because it's a small county, but Clarkstown may not know what's happening in Haverstraw, Spring Valley. So if we all are on the same page, obviously the players don't just stay in one geographical area. Right. They're all over the county, so it's been very helpful.
And Chief, the other thing under your leadership, the Joint Terrorism Task Force, right?
Yeah, I was just going to say that. So we have a detective assigned for the first time in Clarkstown's history anyway, detective assigned to the Joint Terrorist Task Force. And I had been thinking about it for quite a while, wanted to do it, but I think the big impetus was the rabbi in Muncie that was murdered in, I know it was December of...
not murder, there was a murder there, but...
I'm sorry, attacked right after another murder.
Right.
In Muncie, December of 2019.
Mm-hmm.
So that was one of the impetuses, and we now have a detective assigned. He's works with the FBI, New York State Police, and other agencies in a joint task force. It's been great for us. We get any intelligence that, worldwide really, but we're concerned about anything that may impact the town of Clarkstown.
Right. And Chief, one other initiative that I know you and I are both very proud of is the Clarkstown Cares Unit. And we've talked a lot about this on this program and other programs that we've done, and maybe you could talk a little bit about that program too.
Sure. It's CARE stands for the Cultural and Religious Security Unit, and again, kind of prompted by world events. After a string of shootings and massacres at houses of worship, we decided we really need to have a dedicated unit here that will be a liaison, a reach out to all of the faiths here, the three major faiths, right? So it reaches out to all of our churches, all of the synagogues, and then our one, in Clarkstown, our one mosque, mm-hmm. which is in Valley Cottage. And we have them all on a big email chain, phone chain. We do plenty of visits, and really just to give them the sense of security that they deserve, that we're watching out for.
Right. And plus, also, we've done security audits and helped them.
Security surveys, security audits in all of their places, and God forbid we have to respond there. It won't be the first time we're seeing these places.
Right.
So it's been very well received by the religious community.
Right, and I think more importantly, Chief, it's just people need to realize the depth of resources that the Clarkstown Police Department has. I think we're the largest town police department in the state, right?
That's correct. Yeah, so everyone thinks of police, they kind of just think of the officer in the car answering 911 calls, but it's much more than that, and it has to be more than that, because when you get that community engagement, you really get the help from the community that you need. Because we obviously, you can't do it by ourselves.
Agreed, agreed. So Chief, one of the newer things that all town police departments have had to do, is really work on this criminal justice reform,
Right.
and do police department reviews. Maybe you could talk a little bit about, what happened as we're now coming up on adopting our report by the
Yeah.
airing of this show.
Right. So last summer, I guess after the civil unrest in the country, the governor of New York kind of mandated that everyone come up with a community interfaced police reform. And it's really, I think the goal of it was to get everyone on the same page. I think there's 514 law enforcement agencies within New York State, to get everyone on the same page. And we're fortunate here in that we've been an accredited law enforcement agency for 23 years now. So, and that means we go to Albany, there's thousands of kind of points and things you have to meet to be an accredited law enforcement agency. So we've been one of the longest ones in the state, and certainly in this area. So the problem is only about 23% of the law enforcement agencies in New York were accredited. So I think what the governor's intention was really to get everyone up to speed to really be almost essentially considered accredited. So for us, most of the things we had to do as per the reform, which is called Executive Order 203, we already had in place. So we are in the midst of doing it. It's been pretty easy for us. But one of the good things is that we created an internal committee of officers, but we also, with you, created a group of community members that was going to be our liaisons to the rest of the community, where we worked hand in hand with them to come up with any changes or future projects we might do.
Right, and I know that there's been some great recommendations out of that. One of the things that was really surprising to hear from the community members, a lot of people that were asked to be on it, it's a very diverse group. We have people from the NAACPs, from houses of worship, from
Right.
civic associations, chambers of commerce, just run-of-the-mill residents, but a lot of people that are active and involved in the community. And many of these people they really had no idea the depth of the services and the units, the specialty units that the Clarkstown Police Department offers. And I know one of the initiatives now coming from this unit, the police department has a very active social media presence and what have you, but we're now going to start putting together short videos and telling kind of the story to educate our residents about the resources in the police department, correct?
Yeah, and again, right, you can be as good as you are, but if people don't know what you're doing, they don't get a full appreciation. So, right, we're going to, and again, we speak to people all the time. Wow, I didn't know you guys did that. I didn't know you had that. I didn't know you were trained in that. So anything we could do to really get the message out really only helps us.
Right, right. And Chief, we're running short on time, but I do want to talk a little bit about the initiatives just with under your leadership, working together with kind of diversifying the police department. And we had a lot of new hires under your tenure. Roughly how many new officers?
Since I've been chief, we've hired approximately 23 new officers. And right now, we have more people of color than there's ever been in the Clarkstown Police Department. We currently also have 15 female officers right now in the department, which is the most we've ever had since I've been here.
Including a sergeant and a lieutenant.
A lieutenant, a sergeant, a detective, and a police officer, the whole gamut, yeah.
Right, and then you've also had a number of folks that are bilingual, even some trilingual officers,
That's
right?
correct, yeah. Yeah, we have multiple Spanish speakers. I think we have a Turkish speaker. We have actually some other languages that you don't hear very often, but yeah.
Right.
It's been... And it's really made the department better because we've still hired the best people we could, and everything else is a bonus.
Right. So it's really a lot of new officers. There's been a lot of change in the Clarkstown Police Department. A lot of officers retiring, moving on. It's really, frankly, under your tenure, most of the lieutenants have been hired. Correct?
That's correct. Yeah.
So when people look at the structure of the police department, there's a chief, there's one captain. And 8 lieutenants, correct?
That's correct. Yep.
And I think under your tenure, I think 6 of the 8 lieutenants were hired.
Yeah, I think it might even be 7, but yeah, it's been, Yeah, so most of us got hired in the 80s and all of that time frame. We're all kind of getting towards the end of the line. So there's been a very big changeover, just basically on retirements. A lot of people, you know.
Right. Well, Chief, I definitely want to thank you for your leadership and your stewardship of the Clarkstown Police Department. It's really been a steady hand, and I can tell you, you know, when I talk with other supervisors, when I talk with people in law enforcement, you have an exceptional reputation as really the steady hand at the wheel at the Clarkstown Police Department, and a really strong reputation in the Clarkstown and greater law enforcement community. And you certainly have left your stamp on this Clarkstown Police Department.
Thank you, Supervisor. And I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that without this great support we get from you and the rest of the town board, we couldn't do most of these projects. So thank you.
Well, thank you. And again, the efforts on the police reform, which was a state mandate, I think it was a very good process. We had a very diverse group of folks from the community, and I think our initiatives that will be coming out of that, particularly trying to, you know, there'll be a few tweaks here and there always are, and that's always an ongoing process, but really trying to tell the story in a more comprehensive way. We're going to be doing short videos and things of that nature to really, and some educational videos as well, that will be available on YouTube and Facebook and social media and up at the town website and the police department, so that we'll be able to educate our residents so they realize that it's just not a 911 call, and you know the police are going to be there in record time for our town. You call 911 and we're going to have an officer there in most cases in 90 seconds, right? You know, it's a remarkably quick period of time, you know, for a response, but it's beyond that. It's all the other things that we do that people don't realize, and it's a very full service police department under a very competent and exceptional leadership with yourself and Captain Wanamaker and our lieutenants and other administration. So thank you, Chief.
Thanks
for being a great guest.
Thank you.
Stay tuned. We'll be right back.